across the board. We need more research and development. I'd like to move that $80 billion into renewable development. That's where we need to develop our energy, and that has to happen with Republican and Democratic support. And until we see some leadership from the Republican Party, it's going to happen on the Democratic side.
Mr. Platts.
Again, comprehensive. We need a comprehensive energy policy, both for the short term and long term. In the short term, we need to use the resources we have. That means our own oil, our own natural gas, our own coal, and nuclear power. France is at about 80% of their electricity comes from nuclear power. We're at about 18 to 20%. We need to make that investment. This is not 1979 when TMI happened. I lived here, was a high school student when that happened. Technology is advanced, but we've not let it advance here in our country. We need to have conservation. A reference to being the lead Republican on the fuel efficiency bill. The first time since the 1970s that we improved the fuel efficiency requirements of our passenger vehicles and light trucks. That didn't just happen, and you know, I don't want that it was because of me. It was because of a bipartisan effort. Ed Markey, me, Sherry Bullard, who had retired from the House, a Republican from New York. He had laid a lot of groundwork. That I partnered with him when he was in the House, and when he left, I took up the charge on the Republican side. We need to use technology to advance the cause. Conservation, next renewable. I am the lead Republican right now on renewable energy. Ed Markey and I again partnered. In the past session was Tom Udall from New Mexico, my Democratic colleague. He went to the Senate. Ed Markey took his spot on the Democratic side. It's a good bipartisan partnership. Our bill says 25% renewable by the year 2025. Ed would say to me, Todd, we got to be realistic. It's probably 20 by 20, maybe, if we're lucky. But we've got to start somewhere and promote renewable. And that includes biomass, wind, solar, and hydro. Hydropower is a huge renewable energy source we have here. And it's not just about making our energy more domestic and more affordable and more stable. It's also about employing 19 district residents. The only two manufacturers of hydro turbines in the country are in York County, Pennsylvania. Voith Hydro and American Hydro. Renewable energy, hydropower in particular, is about jobs for central Pennsylvanians. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan.
If we keep heading in the direction that we're heading in right now, 10 years from now we'll be dependent on oil. 25 years from now we'll be dependent on oil. We need to look to the future. We need to develop, we need to embrace the technologies we already have. We need to release some suppressed technologies by patent rights and different things that would have benefited us for the past 40 years. See, currently we're using 40-year-old technology, and we need to start moving towards the future. That includes renewable resources, green energy, and also other existing technologies while we implement those new phases, new ideas. But we need representation that's willing to represent the people. Once again, not the major corporations and energy companies, so we can actually benefit the individuals and the people at the local levels. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
The energy policy debate is one that doesn't seem to ever get better. We've been talking about getting off oil since I've been working for 35 years. It's frustrating to see that nothing happens, and quite frankly, I'm going to tell you why. It's because the oil industry owns the House of Representatives, and even though Mr. Platts won't take PAC money, he still gets the vote for that, and I think that's a great deal for him. In fact, if they get 70% of what they want, get to keep their subsidies, that's a problem, honestly. And I think it's until we address the issues of money and politics, our energy system is not going to move straight out. There's too much money to be made in the energy system. There's too easy for them to take monopolies and put us in a corner so that the people are the ones taking advantage of it. The ones who are paying the bills end up giving all the money back, all our profits, everything back to the industries. And this is an issue where leadership is essential. Until we get somebody who's willing to focus on cleaning up the conversation and getting rid of subsidies for corporate welfare, we're not going to get ahead.
Mr. Platts?
Nothing happens. First time in 30 years, fuel efficiency was increased. Oil consumption is reduced the more fuel efficient your vehicle is. So it took 30 years. It took leadership by Ed Markey, myself, and many others in the House and Senate. But we got the job done. We showed leadership and said we are going to make something happen, and we passed that bill for the first time in 30 years. Remember, I'm the only member of the House that doesn't take PAC contributions. I don't know the position. My opponents up here, feel free to ask me, but I'm the only one who never has and never will take special interest contributions. And in the area of energy, we talk about what we should do, but also what we should not do. If we adopted the cap and trade bill into law that passed the House of Representatives, it would cripple our economy. The Democrat-appointed members of the Public Utility Commission of Pennsylvania, appointed by Governor Rendell, wrote to all of us, Republicans and Democrats in Pennsylvania, said, please vote no on cap and trade that's before you, because it will cost 60,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, increase our electric rates 15 to 20% above what's going to happen with the rates coming uncapped. Please vote no. So it's not just what we should do, it's what we better not do, and that's not pass the cap and trade legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan?
I would agree with Mr. Sanders' earlier statements and Mr. Platts' statements as well. Cap and trade, I would never advocate taking any federal or tax dollars and supporting private foundations under cap and trade. That's not the American way. Thank you.
Okay, moderator's prerogative here. We have time for one more question, but no time for rebuttal. So if you have something outrageous to say, this is your moment. Okay, so it'll be 2 minutes each, and it's a very important question, so I want to make sure that we touch on this too. It has to do with the environment, and the order for this question is Mr. Platts, Mr. Monighan, and Mr. Sanders. And again, no rebuttal. The question is, what role should the federal government play with regard to environmental policy? If you could speak at some point about global warming in particular, that would be helpful.
I may sound a little repetitive because I believe the way you go after protecting the environment and specifically greenhouse gas emissions and global warming is through a very specific approach to the causes of it. And so what I mean by that is emissions from vehicles, huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions numbers. So what do? We reduce the amount of emissions through technology, through fuel efficiency. The bill I sponsored wasn't just about us consuming less oil and getting us less dependent on foreign oil. It's about reducing emissions, a huge benefit for greenhouse gas emission reduction. Second, conservation. Renewable energy. As we move to wind and solar, biomass and hydro and nuclear, no emissions. Clean energy that can be benefiting our economy, reducing the cost of energy, making it more stable, domestic, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I talk a lot about hydro because not just because I've got employers who make the turbines, but because it's a proven technology. It's not reinventing the wheel. Right now, there's a project going on in Ohio with existing dams. Because the technology is advanced, they're going to go in and take dams that were not hydroelectric generating and put in turbines. It's a huge job creator for our district and a huge energy production on existing dams, not new dams. So we need to, again, take a very targeted approach that is about reforms or actions that will improve the environment, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also benefit the economy. And that's the thing with the cap and trade. What's going to happen under cap and trade is if we would enact into law what passed the House, we're going to drive the jobs from America overseas, the good, well-paying manufacturing jobs. There's a dolomite refractory in my district, the only one in the United States. If the cap and trade bill that passed the House became law, the likelihood of those jobs remaining here is almost zero. Their competition is Brazil and China. The jobs would go to Brazil and China, the greenhouse emissions would not go down, they would go up because we have stronger environmental controls today than either of those countries have if those jobs go there. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan.
I think one thing to think about is carbon dioxide itself. What is it? It's one of the 4 fundamental building blocks of life. I don't think the federal government or any other agency or foundation should have that type of control over humanity. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
All right. First, let me be clear about the cap and trade project. Somehow it's become a stick for which to beat the Democratic Party over. This was originally a successful Republican idea and proposed in 1990 by, how you may remember his name was George H.W. Bush. This was a 1990 Clean Air Act amendment. It was designed to reduce the use of acid rain in our communities and in our air. Quite honestly, it was quite successful and still in place today. So what a lot of this back and forth about how bad cap and trade is, how the jobs are going to disappear, well, honestly, it's about politics. Who's in office right now? Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. It's a stick with which we can destroy the party and destroy bipartisanship. Plain and simple. You go back through the 20 years since that act has been signed, the cost of the bill are about $3 billion a year to utility companies. But the benefits, the savings for the community and for the country as a whole, about $122 billion. So we get a net gain of $120 billion. It's a no-brainer. Why are we doing something like this? We can negotiate back and forth about what details of the cap and trade are good or bad. But I think I'm not sure if you heard about this, Todd, Maria Cantwell, the senator from Washington, and Susan Collins, senator from Maine, have offered an alternative, which is a very good compromise, it's also short, it's only 40 pages, that would probably very much do the same sort of thing. So why don't we pass this bill? If there's two Republican Democrats willing to offer this, we know that this sort of thing works, and has worked in the past, it is working now, and saving $120 billion, why aren't we doing it? I can't see it. The only reason I can think is, oh wait, the 2010 election's coming up, and we need to destroy the presidency. It's frustrating. And that's what I see what's wrong with our country, and wrong with where we're going about our politics.
Okay, we have come to the point in the program where we'll move to closing statements. The order will be Mr. Monighan, Mr. Sanders, and Mr. Platts. And I think it'd be perfectly appropriate at the end of each one of the closing statements, if agree or disagree, you let these young, and I say that seriously, young gentlemen, because I'm older than all of them.
I'm honored to be included in the group.
Yeah, oh no. And let them know that you appreciate the fact that they're standing up. They're all doing a public service here by running for office, and it's what makes our American democracy so special. And so let them know that you appreciate the time all three of them are pouring into this out of their personal lives to represent you. So go ahead, Mr. Monighan.
I'd like to thank, first of all, the YMCA and the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event. I'd also like to thank everybody else that came out today. And one thing I'd like to really stress is if you, as a people, as we as a people continue to vote the same way we've voted for the past 10 years, we'll see the same results for the next 10 years. Another way to say that is a vote for the Democrat, a vote for the Republican, is a vote for the status quo. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
Great, I would say the same thing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to the college. It's a great time to be here, and I've enjoyed having a conversation with you two as well. I need to be direct, though. I see a problem with the leadership and the direction of our country as well. And that leadership problem that starts here at home. Because too often we as a society point the finger and blame the other guy. It's Nancy Pelosi's fault. It's somebody else's fault. But, my friends, the buck stops right here with us. It's our job to hold our leaders accountable, and that's why I'm running, because we want to hold our leaders to account. I like Todd Platts. He's a great guy and a great family man. I think he cares about you a whole lot. But I believe Mr. Platts and his leaders in Congress are fundamentally misunderstanding the needs of our country in this extremely difficult time. And I think they're selfishly trying to keep their jobs at our expense. We have one overriding concern right now, and that's our economy, because many of our livelihoods are in a shambles. Our leadership has failed us, and like it or not, the accountability train has come to the station. I'm not running because I think Mr. Platts is purposely taking advantage of us like the snakes on Wall Street have, or the oil industry does. I'm running because I think Mr. Platts has lost his way, and he's forgotten that his job is to represent us. You know, he's been in office for 10 years and had numerous opportunities to lead us away from the problems that cause this crisis, and he's passing every single one. I'm running because a true leader makes those tough calls. A true leader bucks his or her party when the needs of constituents are at risk. One quick example. 2002, Mr. Platts sat on the fence while the Bush administration allowed the pay-as-you-go rules to expire. Those are the rules that balanced our budget. Those rules created this surplus that we were debating how to get a tax code away for. All of a sudden, from that point on, our deficit ballooned. It doubled. And so what we have now is the largest deficit in the history of our nation. Why is it that Mr. Platts doesn't work for you anymore? Why is he working for what the leadership, his leaders want and what they tell him to do?